Canada's economic red alert. Your business is at risk. Let's be blunt. Canada's economy has hit a wall. After limping through 2025, real GDP growth is looking sluggish. Most major banks are calling for just 1.1% to 1.4% growth in 2026. For most people, that's just a headline they'll scroll past. But for you, the Canadian small business owner, this is a red alert, a direct threat to your livelihood. This isn't your average downturn. It's a structural crisis. The very pillars of our economy are being reshaped, and our old playbook can't fix it. The biggest threat? Deep uncertainty in our trade relationship with the United States. The upcoming 2026 review of the Canada-US-Mexico Agreement, or CUSMA, is a high-stakes showdown that could rewrite the rules of North American trade. This isn't some far-off problem. It's a storm gathering on your doorstep. So for the next few minutes, I'm going to give you the urgent briefing you won't get anywhere else. I'll break down what this new economic reality means for your bottom line and, most importantly, what you need to do right now to protect your business. Section 1. Why this is a red alert. So, what are we really up against? Economists are warning that this isn't a typical slowdown that a few interest rate cuts can magically fix. We are in a structural shift, and the main driver is the instability of global trade. The sheer uncertainty around the CUSMA review, set to kick off by July 2026, is the elephant in the room for every single Canadian business. What should have been a routine checkup on the trade deal has ballooned into what experts at the Center for Strategic and International Studies are calling a high-stakes negotiation. The U.S. has been openly talking about using tariffs as a weapon, signaling they're ready to play hardball. That isn't fear-mongering. It's the geopolitical reality we now live in. For your business, this uncertainty acts like a tax. It makes long-term planning next to impossible. How can you confidently sign a new lease, invest in equipment, or expand your product line when the rules of your biggest market could change overnight? This instability drives up your operating costs, squeezes your profit margins, and forces you to build a risk premium into every single decision. This is the new cost of doing business in Canada. This isn't a temporary storm that will blow over. It's a fundamental change in our economic climate, and it demands a new game plan from entrepreneurs like you. Section 2. The domino effect on your business. The trade situation is the headline, but the crisis runs deeper. There are other powerful forces at play that are hitting your customers, your workforce, and your chances for growth. First, let's talk about people. In late 2025, Canada hit the brakes on its rapid population growth as immigration policies shifted. This reversal is a double-edged sword. Sure, it might ease some pressure on housing and infrastructure, but it also means a slowdown in the growth of our labor force and our customer base. For years, many businesses have counted on a growing population to fuel demand. Now you have to ask yourself, with population growth nearly flat, where are your new customers going to come from? Second, the Canadian consumer is tapped out. Even with the Bank of Canada's earlier interest rate cuts, households are still drowning in debt and facing a housing affordability crisis. And while overall inflation is cooling down toward the Bank of Canada's 2% target, families are still feeling the sting of higher prices. This means consumer spending, the lifeblood of so many small businesses, is expected to stay weak. People are focused on mortgages and groceries, leaving less money for the very products and services many of you provide. Finally, the job market is in a weird spot. While the unemployment rate is expected to remain elevated, it creates a strange paradox. You might see headlines about a softer job market, but the structural shifts in our economy mean there's a growing mismatch between the skills people have and the skills you actually need. You could find it harder to hire qualified talent, even with more people looking for work. This toxic mix of a squeezed consumer, slowing population growth, and a shifting labor market creates a treacherous path for any business just trying to keep the lights on. Before we get to the actionable plan to safeguard your business, and believe me, there is a plan, I want to ask you to do one quick thing. If you're getting value from this briefing, take a second to subscribe and hit the notification bell. My only mission here is to give Canadian entrepreneurs the unvarnished truth and the practical strategies you need to thrive. Your subscription helps get this information to more business owners who need to hear it. Section 3. The Government's Playbook and Why It Won't Be Enough for You. So, what are our leaders doing about all this? It's important to understand their strategy because it directly affects your financial planning. We're seeing a major handoff. The Bank of Canada is stepping back, and the federal government is stepping up. Let's start with the Bank of Canada. After a series of rate cuts, the consensus is that the policy rate will likely be held steady for most, if not all, of 2026. The message for you is blunt. Don't expect cheap loans to save the day. The era of easy money is over. The bank is on the sidelines, trying to balance a weak economy against inflation pressures from things like trade disruptions. With the bank on hold, the government is turning to spending. Ottawa has announced a growth-focused agenda financed by deficits, mostly aimed at defense and infrastructure. This spending is expected to add about 0.4 percentage points to GDP growth in 2026. But let's be real. Economists are calling this stabilization, not a silver bullet. It's an attempt to put a floor under the economy, not to launch us into a new era of growth. And here's the fine print for you. This stimulus is not designed for the average small business. It's for massive, capital-intensive projects. Unless you're in construction, engineering, or a direct supplier for major defense contracts, you're not likely to see a direct dime. The hope is that the money will eventually trickle down, but if you're worried about next quarter's payroll, that's a long and uncertain wait. You can't build your strategy around the hope of government money eventually finding its way to you. Section 4. The Solution, Your 5-Point Business Survival Plan. So, with all this uncertainty and with government help being a long shot, what can you actually do? Waiting and hoping isn't a strategy. It's time to take control. Here is your 5-point action plan to build a fortress around your business. First, do a ruthless margin analysis. With sticky costs and potential supply chain headaches from trade friction, your expenses are under attack. You have to know your numbers inside and out. Scrutinize every single line item. Where can you cut waste? Can you renegotiate with suppliers? Can you lock in prices? In this environment, you can't afford to just absorb rising costs. Protecting your profit margin is job number one. Second, diversify where your money comes from. If the Canadian consumer is broke and the population is flat, you have to find new markets. With the U.S. trade relationship on shaky ground, it's time to look further. Explore markets where Canada has stable trade deals. Think about shifting from selling to consumers, B2C, to selling to other businesses, B2B. Companies that solve problems for other companies are often better insulated from consumer spending shocks. Don't keep all your eggs in one fragile basket. Third, stress test your finances for a high-rate world. The Bank of Canada has been clear. Rates aren't dropping to crisis-era lows anytime soon. You need to build your financial models on this new reality. Run the scenarios now. What happens to your loan payments if your revenue drops 10% or 15%? How much cash do you have to survive a prolonged downturn? Fortify your balance sheet, pay down high-interest debt, and build a cash reserve to last at least 6 turbulent months. In this economy, resilience is your new competitive advantage. Fourth, hunt for regional and niche opportunities. This crisis won't hit every part of the country the same way. Manufacturing hubs in Ontario and Quebec are more exposed to trade risks. Resource-rich regions might be more insulated. Look for the pockets of strength in your own backyard. Can you plug into local supply chains? Can you pivot to serve sectors that are getting government money, like infrastructure or green tech? Become a specialist in a resilient niche instead of a generalist in a struggling market. And fifth, get lean and agile. This is not the time for risky, multi-million-dollar expansion plans based on rosy 5-year forecasts. This is the time to be nimble. Invest in technology that makes you more efficient. Cross-train your staff so your team can adapt. The businesses that survive this shift and eventually thrive will be the ones that can pivot quickly without breaking the bank. Be lean, be smart, and be ready to move. The conclusion. The takeaway is this. Canada's economy isn't in a simple funk. It's going through a deep structural change. The combination of trade uncertainty, a major demographic shift, and a tapped-out Canadian consumer has created a genuine red alert for small businesses. But a warning is not a death sentence. Risk always creates opportunity for those who are prepared and willing to act. The strategies that worked for the last 10 years won't work for the next 10. By taking radical ownership of your margins, diversifying your markets, fortifying your finances, hunting for niche opportunities, and building an agile operation, you can do more than just survive. You can navigate this storm and come out stronger on the other side. Your business is at risk, but the actions you take starting today will define its future. What's the single biggest challenge you're facing in your business right now? Drop it in the comments below. Let's start a conversation and share some knowledge. And if you haven't already, subscribe for more analysis to help you protect and grow your livelihood. See you in the next one.